All right, let's get into it. Every single second of your life, there's this silent, absolutely epic war being fought inside of you. I mean, we're talking about a conflict with stakes higher than anything in history, and it's all fought by a defense force made of trillions of tiny soldiers. Today, we are cracking open the case file on this incredible network, your immune system. And we're going to start with something you might find surprisingly simple.
Yeah, really. To understand this ridiculously complex system, we don't need some high-tech lab. All we need to do is think about something that's happened to all of us, getting a splinter. That little tiny piece of wood, it kicks off a full-scale military response that perfectly shows off the strategy, the power, and the sheer genius of your body's defenders. This is where our story really begins.
So, first things first. The immune system isn't one single organ you can just point to, like your heart or your liver. Nope, it's a hugely coordinated team, and it's spread throughout your entire body. And trying to understand it by just looking at one type of cell, well, that's kind of like trying to figure out a championship football game by only watching one player.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If you're just watching that one guy, his sprint down the field looks totally random, right? It makes no sense. But when you zoom out and see the whole field, you suddenly get it. He just pulled two defenders out of position, and that created the perfect opening for a touchdown. Your immune system is an absolute master of this kind of teamwork. It's all about different players cooperating to defend you.
And when we say the whole field, you probably won't believe how big it actually is. We all think of our skin as our main barrier, but that's only about 2 square meters. The real front line, the place where most of the action happens, is the 400 square meters of mucous membranes lining your gut, your lungs, and everything in between. That is the size of 2 tennis courts that your immune system has to patrol constantly.
Okay, so let's go back to that splinter in your toe. The split second it breaks through your skin, it's met by the very first line of defense, what we call the innate immune system. This system is ancient, it's incredibly powerful, and it is always ready to go. It's the defense that basically all animals are just born with.
Stationed right there in your tissues, like sentinels on watch, are the absolute heroes of this innate system. Let's meet the macrophage. Its name literally means big eater. And trust me, if you are a bacterium that just rode in on that splinter, this is the very last cell you ever want to meet. It's not just sitting around waiting. It is actively hunting for trouble.
So how does this takedown actually happen? It's this beautiful, brutal 4-step process called phagocytosis. First, the macrophage senses the invader. Its receptors lock onto it. Then, it engulfs the bacterium, completely swallowing it and sealing it inside a little pouch. Next, that pouch fuses with a deadly internal weapon, a little bubble full of acid and digestive enzymes. And finally, it's destroyed. The invader is just completely obliterated inside the macrophage, and all the toxic stuff is safely contained. It's an absolutely brilliant, clean, and efficient execution.
And here's the really cool part. All this cellular warfare connects directly to what you actually feel. You know, when the macrophages are fighting, they release these chemical messengers called cytokines. These signals are what tell the blood vessels to open up, which causes the redness. They make the vessels leaky so reinforcements can get in, and that creates the swelling. And they tickle your nerve endings to send a danger signal to your brain. That's the pain. Every single sign of inflammation is actually a sign that your immune system is on the job and calling for backup.
Now, the innate system is fantastic. It's great at holding the line against common thugs. But what if the invader is something new? Something the body has never, ever seen before? Well, while those macrophages are busy fighting on the front lines, a second, way more sophisticated system is getting activated in the background. The adaptive immune system. Your own personal custom weapons factory.
You know, the first real clue we had that this adaptive system even existed came from a doctor named Edward Jenner way back in the 1790s. He noticed something fascinating. Milkmaids who got this mild disease called cowpox never seemed to get the terrifying, deadly plague of smallpox. So, in this incredibly daring experiment, he took some pus from a cowpox sore and he actually scratched it into the arm of a young boy. A little while later, the boy was exposed to smallpox and he was completely immune. It was the first proof that our bodies could learn to fight a specific enemy they'd never officially met.
This discovery blew the doors open on a massive puzzle for immunologists. See, the main weapons of this adaptive system are proteins called antibodies, and each one is custom-built for a specific invader. To protect us from pretty much everything we could ever encounter, we need about 100 million different antibodies. But here's the thing. The entire human genome only has about 25,000 genes. So how on earth could so few genes possibly code for so many different proteins? It seemed impossible.
The answer, and this was a Nobel Prize-winning breakthrough, is just so beautifully elegant. It's modular design. Our bodies don't waste space having a separate gene for every single antibody. Instead, our DNA has gene segments. You can think of it like having a huge box of Lego bricks. By just mixing and matching these different segments in countless combinations, the body can build a nearly infinite variety of unique antibodies from a pretty limited set of parts.
So how does a B cell, the cell that makes antibodies, actually build its unique weapon? Well, as it's developing, it basically plays a game of genetic slot machine. From a whole library of options, it randomly chooses one V segment, and then it randomly chooses one D segment, and finally, it chooses one J segment. Then it literally pastes these three pieces together, and boom, it's created a brand new, one-of-a-kind gene for its antibody. Every single B cell pulls the lever on this slot machine, which guarantees a mind-boggling amount of variety.
So the body creates millions of different B cells, and each one proudly displays its unique, custom-made antibody on its surface, kind of like bait on a fishing line. Now, most of these B cells will fish their entire lives and never, ever get a bite. But when an invader shows up, let's say it's the chickenpox virus, the one B cell whose bait just happens to be a perfect match gets a catch. This is the crucial moment. That lucky B cell is now selected, and it gets a signal to rapidly clone itself into an army of thousands of identical cells, all of them now guaranteed to recognize the enemy.
This brand new army of B cells then starts pumping out antibody molecules at an incredible rate, like up to 2,000 molecules per cell per second. But here's a really important twist. Antibodies aren't actually assassins. They're more like spotters. Their job is to swarm an invader and tag it for destruction. A process with a fantastic name, opsonation. They essentially plant the kiss of death on the bad guy, which is a signal that screams to the real killers, like our old friend the macrophage, this is the one, get it.
Now, antibodies are amazing, but they have one pretty major weakness. They can't get inside our own cells. And that's a huge problem when you're dealing with viruses, because viruses do all their dirty work by hijacking our own cellular machinery from the inside. To solve this hiding virus problem, the adaptive system has another branch of special operatives, the T cells.
So, B cells and T cells, they're both on the adaptive team, but they're really different players. B cells, they mature in the B bone marrow, and they release their antibodies to hunt freely. T cells, on the other hand, they mature in the thymus, and they keep their receptors stuck to their surface. And that little detail hints at their biggest difference. T cells have a completely different way of seeing the enemy.
A T cell can't recognize an invader just floating around on its own. It needs another cell to present the evidence to it. And immunologists have this great kind of goofy way to picture this. Think of a hot dog. All of our body cells are constantly chopping up little bits of whatever proteins are inside them and displaying those fragments on their surface. The molecule that does the displaying, called MHC, is like the hot dog bun, and the protein fragment itself is the wiener. T cells are the inspectors, and they're constantly moving from cell to cell checking what's for lunch. Because T cells are such powerful weapons, they can kill our own cells, activating one is a really high-stakes decision. So to prevent a catastrophic mistake, the system has this brilliant built-in safety measure. 2 key activation. First, the T cell's receptor has to recognize that specific antigen, hot dog. That's the first key, but that's not enough. It also needs a second, more general danger signal from the cell that's presenting the antigen. Think of it like a safe deposit box at a bank. You need both your specific key and the bank teller's general key to get it open. It's an absolutely critical failsafe. Okay, so you might be wondering, with trillions of cells all moving around, how does the right T cell ever find the right cell that's presenting its specific target? Well, the body solves this with structures like your lymph nodes, and you can think of these as bustling dating bars or communication hubs for the immune system. The presenter's carrying antigens drain from the tissues into the lymph nodes, and the B and T cells are constantly circulating through them, which dramatically increases the odds of them making that perfect, life-saving connection.
So, we've now seen the two main divisions of this incredible defense force. Let's pull back and look at the big picture for a second. How do these two very different strategies actually compare? And how does the system make sure it never has to fight the same war twice?
A really great way to summarize the two systems is to think of them as two different kinds of shoe stores. The innate system is Freddy's Fast Fit. It's open 24/7, it's ready immediately, and has general-purpose shoes that work for most common situations. The adaptive system, on the other hand, is Charlie's custom shoes. They can create a perfect, bespoke pair of shoes for any threat you can imagine, but you have to wait a week or two for them to make it. So the Fast Fit option holds the line while that perfect, custom-made weapon is being forged.
And this, right here, is the adaptive system's absolute masterpiece. After the war is won and most of those cloned B and T cells die off, a few of these battle-hardened veterans are kept on as memory cells. These cells can stick around for years, sometimes for your entire lifetime. And if that same invader ever dares to show its face again, these memory cells unleash a response that is so fast and so powerful, you usually defeat the enemy without even knowing you were sick. That is immunological memory, and that is the entire principle behind how vaccines work.
So what we have is this incredibly powerful, specific, and intelligent system that can learn and remember. It's truly an elite defense force that tells the difference between you and not you with breathtaking accuracy. But all of this raises a final, really fascinating question. What happens when this powerful system makes a mistake? What happens when its targeting systems go haywire and it declares war on our own body? Well, that's a story for another time.